As numerous American R&B solo artists, duos, and groups made their indelible mark in the genre in the 90s, there were also a few UK R&B artists that did the same across the pond around the same time. Eternal was one of them. They looked good, sounded good, and were considered the UK's answer to another popular foursome, En Vogue. Ironically, like their American counterparts, the group dealt with their fair share of internal issues among the members that eventually tore them apart. Let's find out whatever happened to British R&B girl group Eternal. Esther Bennett and her older sister Vernette, aka Vernie, along with Kelly Bryan and her friend and classmate Louise Nerding, now known as Louise Redknapp, who all hailed from various parts of London, England, formed Eternal in 1992. During their formative years, Esther and Vernie's mother was a pastor, so nothing but gospel music was ever played in their home. Kelly also grew up in the church, but her parents did allow some secular favorites to be heard, such as Billie Holiday, Sam Cooke, and Bob Marley. At the age of 11, Louise won a scholarship to a performing arts school in London, where she met her future Eternal colleague, Kelly Bryan, on her first day. Years later, at the tender age of 15, they both found themselves one night at a club where a strange man came up to Louise and asked if she could sing. That man was record producer Dennis Inglesby, and he would later become Eternal's manager. He introduced Louise to Esther and Vernie, and after getting some studio time under their belt, they decided that they needed another member to complete the group. Louise automatically volunteered Kelly. As to be expected with manufactured groups, the girls first needed to see whether or not they would get along with one another as friends before venturing into any kind of business deal. So over the course of the next year, they did just that. But it wasn't so easy in the beginning. In the British reality documentary series The Big Reunion in 2014, Kelly spoke about her first impression of the sisters, saying, "The girls just seemed quite standoffish. I remember just looking at Lou thinking, have I done something? Or is there something I don't know? I talked to Lou about it and I'm just like, is it me or is this, is this a bit hostile? I'm not really sure what's happening here. I was thinking, oh, maybe the dynamic's already there and I'm a new person coming in and you're kind of thinking of all different reasons for it." Always and Forever, Eternal's debut album, dropped November 28, 1993. It became a commercial success, selling over 1 million copies in the UK alone, a first by a female group, going 4 times platinum, and yielding 6 top 20 singles. The first being the lead single, Stay, which put the group on the international map by also breaking the top 20 charts in Australia, Ireland, France, New Zealand, Canada, and the US. Even though their voices were taking them to the top of the charts, their look was also a major contributing factor to the attention and opportunities available, in good ways and bad. In 2019, Kelly spoke about it on British talk show Loose Women, saying, "I think at the time in the early 90s, it was really groundbreaking for a start to have a band that had, was biracial or interracial in any way, shape, or form. So it was groundbreaking in that sense, because it was before, the bands that came afterwards. And even at that time, it was seen as quite taboo. We'd have so many difficulties with magazines and things like that, publications saying, oh, we can't because you're a majority black band, so therefore you can't go on the front cover of the magazine. There were emails and documentation to support that where they would say, the reason that we can't have you on the front cover is because of this or that. And we would challenge that and say, but why not? And they would say, well, because black people don't sell magazines." No matter how much success a singing group achieves, it's only natural that one or two or all of the members at some point may decide to strike out on their own to pursue their dream of making it big as a solo artist. Louise ended up being the first to give it her best shot. She left the group in 1995, just before the release of their second album. Even though there was much speculation from the press about there being a fallout, the remaining members have always maintained that even though they were disappointed to see her go, their friendship was very much intact and they were all very proud of her solo accomplishments. She released 3 hit albums over the next 5 years. Her biggest hit to date is the track Naked off her debut solo album of the same name, released in 1996. She married her longtime boyfriend, football player, or soccer for some, Jamie Redknapp 2 years later, and they went on to have 2 sons before divorcing in 2017. In January 2020, she released her first studio album in nearly 20 years, Heavy Love. Over the years, Louise has also kept herself busy outside the world of music, with substantial work as a television presenter, being the face of numerous advertising campaigns, and launching a makeup line. At the time of the making of this video, her tell-all autobiography, You've Got This, and Other Things I Wish I Had Known, is scheduled for release on March 4th, 2021. After Louise's departure, the trio reinvented themselves and forged ahead with their next effort 2 years later, Power of a Woman. It produced 4 hit singles, including I Am Blessed, which they performed for Pope John Paul II at the Vatican that same year. Even after 2 hit albums and having just enough fingers to count the number of hits between them, there was still one thing that eluded them: the number 1 spot. They would finally achieve that with I Wanna Be the One, a duet with BB Winans, from their 3rd album, Before the Rain, released in 1997. Later that year, Eternal's Greatest Hits package was released, which would seem premature for most artists with only 3 albums under their belt, but they had already accumulated enough hits at that point to make it a worthwhile project. The numbers were great and the fans were great, but things were terrible between Kelly, Esther, and Vernie. The internal issues that had been present since the very beginning finally came to a head when Kelly was controversially dismissed by the Bennett sisters via fax from their solicitor. There are definitely 2 sides to this story, Kelly's and the Bennett sisters. Both parties do acknowledge that there was a major communication breakdown. Kelly felt she was the odd man out while the sisters had each other to lean on. Esther and Vernie were actually told by the record label and management that Kelly requested that she record her vocals for their 3rd album separately in England when the group was set to do it in the US. They also claim that as far back as the 2nd album, the motivation for Kelly to even do that project was financially driven. Also, over the years, the sisters maintain that Kelly constantly voiced her desire to leave the group, so they decided to go ahead and give her what she wanted. For a probably record-breaking amount of time, the Bennett sisters did replace Kelly with another artist by the name of TJ Arlette. It clearly wasn't meant to be, since she ended up quitting after only a few days, and Esther and Vernie carried on as a duo. Eternal's 4th and final album came in 1999. There was very little promotion surrounding the release, and it didn't do well on the charts. They were, however, able to squeeze out one last top 20 hit with What You Gonna Do, the album's first and only single. Sisters Esther Bennett and Vernie Bennett were the only members left when the group disbanded in 2000. However, 3 years later, the sisters plus Kelly made a brief comeback for the 2nd series of the ITV2 reality show, The Big Reunion. They were able to sit down and talk face-to-face for the first time in more than a decade and hash things out. This led to the group performing a number of select gigs before disbanding once again the following year. Esther married Irish boy band Boyzone member Shane Lynch in 1998. They divorced 2 years later. She continued her music career only for a short time, recording several cover songs, including the Diana King hit Shy Guy, which was released as a single in 2002. The single mom also worked at a top London hotel spa as a beauty therapist. Vernie stepped out of the limelight as well and went back to school to finish studying law, and has since become a practicing lawyer. She currently lives in London with her husband and their 2 children. Kelly was diagnosed with lupus in 1998, but that didn't stop her from releasing her first solo single, Higher Than Heaven, the following year. She did work on a solo album, but it was never released. Also during this time, she founded her own media brand and finally returned to her first love, acting. In 2010, she married Jay Gujian, and the pair has 2 children together. Unfortunately, by 2016, doctors discovered that the lupus had spread to her brain, and she eventually lost the ability to walk, speak, and function on her own. This awful turn of events would take anyone down, and it did take Kelly down, but not out. Less than 1 year later, she would give a very emotional and inspirational TEDx talk in Peckham, South London, about her determination to not allow lupus to run or ruin her life. Thanks for watching. Please like and share the video and subscribe for more amazing content. See you next time.